right here on TV 47. My name is Zinlinda Lela, and this is Morning Cafe. It's a pleasure to have you as we get to the business of the day. Allow us to just take a look at what the papers detail this morning, and then we'll delve deeper into the stories that have been prepared by my team. And also later on, we get to the conversations as pertaining to this very story. And of course, it's all about the CAS's debacle. We'll definitely also try to unpack what next, especially at this point when the Right Honorable Raila Odinga says is going to get his, supporters to proceed and have that Saba moment as they also challenge the doings of the government, a government that is adamant to make sure that Kenyans pay enough tax so that we are able to get that economic turnaround. Just how viable is this at a point when the courts have said, halt, let's take a break on that implementation of the Finance Act 2023. This is basically what we'll be looking at. And we also ask you just how important is it for public officers, for politicians to carry themselves with decorum. I mean, we'll be discussing the conduct of politicians, especially those ones that have been elected by the people, those ones that have been appointed to serve us on different dockets. And so as we get into this conversation, please be part and parcel of us. The hashtag, as always, is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV 47 KE. As I've told you, we have the papers with me this morning, the Daily Nation, the Standard newspaper, and the People Daily. Allow us to look at the stories that have been captured on the front page. Later on, to unpack the rest of the stories with the gentlemen that will be joining me. The biggest of it is Kenya's first quarter growth, second highest, as detailed right here on the front page and expounded on back page of the Daily Nation. Speaks of in 5 years, it says that the KNBS report that we have grown, at the level of second highest, and here we are. It is a story that has been captured here. Kenya's first quarter growth, a second highest in 5 years, and inflation almost doubled to 9% against 5% that is last year. The agriculture sector recorded significant growth after contracting last year. So we'll be looking at all this, and we are defining a bit of basically what this growth is all about. GDP growth slows down, as of course indicated by this very report. 5.3% rate at which the economy grew, that is in the first quarter of this year, and this is lower than the 6.2% growth recorded a similar period last year. What could have informed the staggering? Well, definitely one of the conversations that we'll be having, and finds itself on the front page of the Daily Nation. Also, the next story on EAC, 35% import duty on gas cylinders puts Ruto plan in doubt, is also a story that has been captured on the front page of the Daily Nation, and they speak of how it's going to have some ramifications that is in relation to the plans of the president. New tax puts Ruto's cheap gas cylinders pledge in doubt. That is on the front page of the Daily Nation, and expounded on the back page, as I see here, that President William Ruto's promise, that is to lower the high cost of living, and the cost of gas cylinders, to be precise, could go up a smoke after Kenya opted to suspend the application that is of the East African Community Common External Tariff of that is zero import duty in favor of 35% of the next 12 months effective July the 1st. And this is a story that is there, but perhaps just trying to unpack the possibilities of a successful turnaround on matters economy as promised by the government of President William Ruto. We shelve that one. Another story that is in relation to Raila's succession, and basically the talk that has been in town as to how best they'd be able to put the government in check as opposition, plants afoot for a national mass movement of change that brings everyone on board. That is a story that is captured on the front page. It is time for a change, as they would say, and they're speaking to the frustrated that the noble agenda to save Kenyans have heaving under tough times and how difficult it's been. And so he's talking about the age of 28, and the opposition leader Raila Odinga perhaps will be 82 by the time the next general election will be held, that is in 2027. Will he still be part of the mantle, or maybe he intends to just transfer the baton to somebody else. We can only wait to see what plays out this event as they continue to call upon the supporters to join them on the 7th of this month to speak to the issues of taxes, to speak to the Kenya Kwanza reign and how they are managing the country. Away from it, Murkomen wants PSVs fitted with cameras, that is to curb crashes amidst the reaction or perhaps amidst the accident that we witnessed over the weekend, claiming more than 50-something lives, and this is quite unfortunate. A report that we got also yesterday, there was another accident pretty much close to the very same vicinity of Londiani. Now the government is pushing for the use of technology, that is to catch traffic offenders and impose punitive fines in a bid to curb road carnage. That is captured on page 2. And on the other side, Tum distances himself from the 3.7 billion scandal, that is the KEMSA Nets scam. And on this one, he says the truth is that his office or his department was not involved. And of course, that is for the former Medical Services Principal Secretary. This is basically what he has to say, or he had to say, as he was speaking to the senators, even as he was moved from the Ministry of Health. A story captured on page 10. It's a probe that is ongoing for purposes of getting to understand what really played out and how then we can bring sanity to the health sector. Quite a disturbing report here, raising a child with suicidal thoughts, and they say, or experts refute that today's children are emotionally weaker, saying broken parents have passed trauma onto their children, making them stressed. And of course, this perhaps in reaction to a report out there that has spoken to the fact that, the children today are pretty much emotionally weak. And that is a conversation that, perhaps we need to have as a people to get to know how best then we can protect our very own children. That is on the Daily Nation. Let's see whether the Standard newspaper is up, as well as the People Daily e-paper. Yes. All right, a bit of a twist here. But yes, as it opens, let's take a look at the hard copy, which I have with me here. And the hard copy speaks to basically more or less the same stories that have been captured on these other papers. First of all, no turning back, says Right Honorable Raila Odinga to collapse. And of course, as Azimio leader gears up for a fresh round of battle with President Ruto, with nationwide anti-government rallies this Friday. The Kenya Kwanza team in the House is pushing for the bipartisan conversation, and the IEBC selection panel will go ahead to recruit commissioners, they say, because then the bipartisan do not seem to yield any form of fruits, as the Azimio team maintains that they are out of it in totality. Tearful prayer meeting for Londiani crash victims as well. It was about that somber moment as family and friends, as well as government officials joined hands to make that prayer. And of course, a memorial service for the 53 was conducted, and they died in a horror road accident along the Nakuru-Kericho highway. We continue to condole with the families and friends of these people, or these individuals that lost their lives. Exposing exam theft, syndicate, and social media abuse. That is a story captured on page 2, and a conversation that was there as the numerous or the various entities were put to task to explain why they have not gone hard on those ones that have been, said to have cheated on the examinations, and perhaps addressing just how best we can make sure that this is a game of the past. We witnessed as well the likes of the CEO, that is Ezra Chiloba, as well speaking to this, and equally the conversation that involved, the name of the Ministry of Education. And so the conversation is on, and we certainly hope that they get to the bottom of it, but above everything, then they address the question of exams cheating. Tomboya, a hero and a thorn to some, and as we commemorate his day, of course, the day that he lost his life, certainly lots of stories to speak about him and the reigns then, and also basically relating to just how much they put up a fight, our forefathers, to make sure that we have a better nation. A story captured on page 10 and page 11 of the Standard newspaper. And away from it, paying for travelers as fares go up by up to 20%. That as well is a conversation that has been there. That is a story captured on page 14 of the Standard newspaper. And of course, EPRA defying those orders by the court to stop the implementation of the Finance Act 2023. But then again, they've gone ahead to top up the prices, getting the 16% VAT as declared on this document. And so we wait to see what ramifications this would come with. But obvious, we have seen that the prices are to shoot up. And so transport is not going to be the same as you have, experienced in the past, say, 1 month. And away from it, dilemma for luxury car buyers, a story captured on page 25. Also, it's not been all easy because then, well, if it's going to be for luxury, and you're going to pay so much so for fuel, then questions linger as to how you'd be able to balance this. These are the key stories, as you can see right there. Allow us to shift gears even as we await to see what the People Daily has in store. But basically, it's about the Azimio and Ruto in Heartless Tyrant, and also the adjustments that Murkomen is suggesting for PSV vehicles. And so at this very point, we pick some of the stories that we have worked on right here. And to begin with, it was a relief for parents and students of Gitwamba Primary School, that is Rai area in Kasarani, after they received 2 extra classrooms launched by the Kasarani Member of Parliament, Ronald Karauri. The Member of Parliament has said that the new classes will help reduce the congestion which was being experienced due to the large number of students as compared to the existing infrastructure.
It was a joyous day for students of Gitwamba Primary School after 2 new classrooms constructed at a cost of 8 million shillings were opened today by Kasarani Member of Parliament, Robert Karauri. According to Karauri, the classrooms will facilitate the large number of students at the school and help in decongestion.
I was opening 2 classrooms. We had an issue specific to this school where the school population is extremely high. And we were waiting for the CDF funds, but I decided to build the classrooms as we wait for the CDF to complete the project. The congestion is at such a level. The recommendation is 1 teacher for every 50 students. We had gotten to a point where in every classroom we are approaching close to 200 students. And it's a common problem actually in Nairobi schools.
At the same time, he commended President William Ruto for allocating funds for building classrooms at an earlier kitchen launch in Roysambu, and indicated that he would also use the Constituency Development Fund to facilitate more infrastructure.
Schools. I want to commend the President. The last time we were launching the kitchen in Roysambu, he allocated funds outside the CDF to construct more classrooms in Nairobi, because this need is actually really felt in Nairobi, in the urban areas, rather than in the rural areas. So I will also support that project, and with my CDF I pledge to build many more classrooms in my constituency, because it's a very severe need here in Kasarani.
Embakasi East MP Babu Owino, who was also at the launch, blamed the congestion of the schools on the enrollment of junior secondary schools without proper planning, and urged the government to take immediate action on the issue of infrastructure.
The government should have actually prepared sufficiently before enrolling this junior secondary school, because we are using our students, our children, as control experiment. Soon, some may start giving up in schools because there is no quality education, there is no proper infrastructure, and even these teachers have not been paid up to date. Most of them, from February up to now, they haven't been paid. So there is no also motivation. So the government should move with utmost speed and build this infrastructure that is required for us to run our education well.
The Kasarani MP also launched the Captain Ronald Karauri Foundation, which he says will help in bringing development to the Kasarani constituency.
Leo ninafurahi sana waheshimiwa kuwasindikiza leo. Ndugu yangu sana Karauri, rafiki yangu sana, na nimekuja leo kuona Kenya naendeleza hapa Kasarani, ndio pale Kajiado ni muombe akuja asaidie pia watoto wetu.
Joy Chemutai, TV 47.
And the Principal Secretary, State Department for Basic Education, Dr. Belio Kipsang, has assured county governments full support from the Ministry of Education in ensuring children at the grassroots level receive quality basic education as part of empowering their lives through devolution.
In his speech during the 2023 Children Devolution Conference at the Safaricom Foundation Academy, PS Belio KEMSA has noted that teenage pregnancy and drug abuse have contributed to the rise in number of school dropouts, especially at the northern part of the country. While highlighting key elements that the Ministry of Education is focusing on to ensure quality education among children, the PS has called for mutual collaboration of all education stakeholders in boosting learning at the county levels.
The government and through the Ministry of Education is implementing a number of initiatives and programs to enhance access to quality education, because it is our responsibility as parents, number one, who take care of you as our daughters and sons.
The conference that has drawn pupils and teachers from all 47 counties is set to amplify voices of the children and find their place in the actualization of devolution in the country. In efforts to ensure this is done, Kiambu Governor Kimani Wamatangi and his Wajir counterpart Ahmed Abdullahi have reiterated their full commitment in putting a smile into the lives of children during their tenure of reign.
Under our program, every child in all these centers in Kiambu County will be provided with nutrition or nutritious uji or porridge in the morning, and every child in Kiambu County will have an egg every day for 3 days in a week.
And the whole idea is to see what has worked in the last 10 years and what could have worked better.
Parents, teachers and students who attended the conference have expressed their satisfaction towards devolution, noting that it has helped them acquire services at the doorstep, which costed them time and money prior to the inception of devolved units.
Tumeleta hawa wanafunzi ili watoe sauti kuhusu mahitaji yao, hasa sana watu wenye mahitaji maalum. Wakitoa sauti watapata faida wakirudi kwa kaunti zao. Kwa muda mwingi wametengwa, wajaonekana kuwa watu wa maana katika society, lakini vile wamekuja hapa najua watasikika na watajiunga na wenzao na watatambulika kuwa watu wa maana katika society.
10 years into devolution will mean nothing if the national government will not empower children across all spheres of the country. Jackson Chacha, TV47 at the M-Pesa Foundation Academy, Thika, Kiambu County.
Now, 2 fishermen from Budalangi area, Busia County, have been allegedly shot by a police officer from Uganda while they were fishing at Marenga Beach in Lake Victoria. Residents have succeeded in finding one body, while efforts to find the other body continue. Rhoda Matiani with more.
In Budalangi constituency, Busia County, 2 fishermen were killed by a police officer from Uganda while they were fishing in Lake Victoria. According to Godfrey Odongo, leader of the beach, the fishermen were killed after they resisted to go to Uganda as ordered by the police officer.
Walikuwa wanavua na wakastukia tu boti inapaki kwao. Kuangalia ndani walikuwa watu wawili. Mmoja alikuwa amevaa uniform ya jeshi na alikuwa na bunduki. Wakaoda waende Uganda. Sasa hawa wakaresist ya kwamba Uganda hatuendi, sisi tunarudi Kenya. Wakakisa engine, kaanza safari kuja Sumba. Hawa wakaenda mbele yao, wakawasimamisha. Sasa kwa hali hiyo ni kama kulikuwa na kuvurutana pale, ndio sababu ilifika wakati wakaanza kuchatua marisasi na wakaua watu wetu wawili.
A Kenyan fisherman has called upon the government to intervene following the recurrent cases of murder in the area.
Napenda kuomba serikali yetu ya Kenya kulingana na hii incident ambayo imetendeka, na si mara ya kwanza. Kuna watu wengine ambao pia wavuvi wa Kenya walikuja wakakufa kule sehemu ya Sioport. Watu wetu wanakufa sana. Na tunaomba president wetu ambaye ni William Ruto, tunakuomba. Juu tunaona maybe mahali penye imefikia itabidi wewe ukae na president wa Uganda Yoweri Museveni mtengeneze. Watu wetu wasikufe wamalizike.
Busia County Commissioner Kipchumba Ruto says that the officer has been arrested and is expected to be arraigned in court.
Ugandan officer who was inside our Kenyan boat jumped into the water. He swam across the waters into Sumba Island, which is within the Kenyan territorial waters. And he reached that place this morning. He was arrested by the members of the public, and he has been brought to Port Victoria.
Rhoda Mbatiani, TV47.
Now, mediation talks between the National Police Service Commission and the Office of Inspector General of Police, that is to resolve a row over the promotion of 514 officers, appear to have collapsed. The matter now appears to be headed back to court for the interpretation of the Constitution on the mandate of each office, following deadlock appearing before the Senate Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations. NPSC Chair Eliud Kinuthia blamed the Inspector General of Police, Japheth Koome, for alleged reluctance to resolve the matter, maintaining that this commission was still open to talks should the IG have a chance of heart-to-heart on that.
Promotions, the violated articles is Article 10 and Article 232 on fairness, on equal opportunity, on gender, regional and ethnicity, and also all manner of protection of a workforce in any institution. And therefore, I highlighted this because you can see clearly the difference. When it comes to 246.3, it is about the actual management of human resource of the National Police Service. It is in the wisdom of the writers of this Constitution that police problem, what is causing problem of stress and psychosocial disorders, problem of low morale, problem of officers feeling neglected if they are not known by anybody, chronism and other problem, is because the problem was in the management of human resource. That is what informed the coming up of this commission. And in that wisdom, this commission then is under duty to protect constitutionalism as far as those areas that are concerned.
Bwana CEO, what is then the current position with regard to this? There was the action by the IG. You acted by revoking. You advised them, and then you advertised. Then the IG advised them not to do anything, and if you do, you'll be punished. Then reconciliation failed. So what is the current status of the 514 officers?
I've observed like that what was stopped is implementation of the promotion. Implementation of the promotion means dress appropriate, pay increase, and then you proceed to your duty. And because the IG and the services given direction that that to be done, that was stopped, so that the officers remain or allow time for this process that is ongoing. Two, what was also stayed or stopped is the unlawful order that don't apply. Because the commission had said the alternative route to doing it is application. So officers were allowed to apply at their discretion, but you know it is a choice. If you're given the way to get a promotion on a job, it is your choice. So that is the opening that is there. Now, when we went to the mediation,
the Interior CS, Professor Kithure Kindiki, has trained his guns on the Al-Shabaab terror group and promised to crush it. Speaking in Wajir and Mandera counties, where he was unofficial to other CS assured local leaders and residents that the government will provide round-the-clock security to contractors building key roads such as the Garissa-Wajir, Mandera and Lamu-Mandera roads that have been the targets of terrorists. Here is the full report.
On his one-day tour of the North, Interior CAS Professor Kithure Kindiki landed in Wajir County in the morning. The day will see him traverse the vast North, crisscrossing Wajir, Mandera and Garissa counties for a series of engagements with counties' security and intelligence committees, leaders and residents. Here, the CAS was quick to assure the country that the government shall defeat Al-Shabaab and all violent extremists.
Tutafanya vile iwezekanavyo, na mimi nawahakikishia kama waziri wa usalama wa nchi ya Kenya, tutashinda Al-Shabaab na magaidi wote. We will crush them. We will crush them.
The North has fallen victim to threats of national security that have destabilized communities in northern Kenya. The government, he said, has prioritized and upscaled engagement with local communities to help in identifying and flushing out Al-Shabaab terror group members and other extremists. Community-led and intelligence-based operations, according to the CS, are the ultimate solution in crushing the Al-Shabaab terror group.
Tumeona ya kwamba vikosi vyetu vya usalama vikifanya kazi pamoja, idara ya polisi, idara yetu ya majeshi wa ulinzi wa taifa, idara yetu ya ujasusi NIS, idara ya afisa wa polisi wa ziada NPR, matokeo yanakuwa ni matokeo mazuri. Vile vile tumeona ya kwamba wakati tunajumuisha jamii, wazee na wenye wananchi ambao wenye kutoka pale, inarahisisha kazi yetu ya kulinda usalama.
To deal with modern-day and complex security challenges, the government will, in the 2023-2024 financial year, invest more than 20 billion shillings to procure equipment, including MRAPs, APCs, drones, choppers and night vision-aided equipment to ensure officers are secure as they combat armed criminals, among them terrorists and bandits. His visit comes at the backdrop of increased attacks in the north. More than 30 people, the majority of them security officials, have been killed in separate attacks by the terrorist group near the Kenya-Somalia border. Officials say the attacks started after Mogadishu launched attacks on the terrorist territories, displacing them. After a lull of almost 8 months, the first attack was reported in Mandera on May 2nd, 2023.
Recently, we've had attacks again, around the same corridor. We have a second road, which is very critical for opening up this area. And that is the road from Isiolo, Mudagashe, Abaswen, Wajir, all the way to Mandera, almost 1,000 kilometers. Now that road also has been awarded tenders. Various sections have been given to different contractors.
The government will also provide round-the-clock security to contractors building key roads such as Garissa, Wajir, Mandera and Lamu-Mandera roads that have been the targets of terrorists.
And we have also experienced again possibilities of threats and attacks on those corridors. Yet these development projects are at the core of opening up northern Kenya for economic development and also improving security. And that is why the enemy is attacking contractors and other people, including engineers, because they know once those roads are tarmacked, the place will be more secure.
CS Kindiki also visited security camps to motivate frontline security officers and met county security and intelligence committees.
And as the probe into the 3.7 billion mosquito net scandal intensifies, former Principal Secretary for Medical Services at the Ministry of Health, Engineer Peter Tum, Tuesday appeared before the Senate Health Committee, where he vehemently distanced himself from the bungled procurement process, further insisting that he has no idea as to why he was transferred to the Ministry of Sports. Elizabeth Atieno reports.
Sports Principal Secretary, who is the former Principal Secretary under State Department of Medical Services, now maintains that his then department at the Ministry of Health was in no way involved in the 3.7 billion mosquito net scandal, since in Executive Order 1 of 2023 dated January 6th, malaria and TB were placed under the Department of Public Health and Professional Standards, a position previously led by Principal Secretary Josephine Mburu, who was sent packing.
The State Department of Medical Services was not responsible for the LLINS procurement, as this was a mandate of the State Department for Public Health and Professional Standards under the malaria function.
If surely you had no role in any of these issues, why were you then moved to the sports ministry?
So this one I might not be really sure why he moved me to sports. I submit.
Engineer 2 further passed the baton to the National Treasury and the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency KEMSA, saying they were in charge of procurement funds that were offered by the Global Fund in the country, and that the Ministry of Health is only tasked with providing technical support.
When you talk about my department, for instance, the medical services, there wasn't anything that we did procure verbally. There isn't anything that we give instructions verbally.
Is to make sure, because we are the custodians of money, one, what we are given, is it in line with the work plan of Global Fund? Is it in line with the agreement which we have already signed? If it is not, we engage them, we talk with them.
Kenya has 2 funding entities for the procurement of nets, which is the Global Fund and the US President's Malaria Initiative PMI. Global Fund was only procuring pyrethroid nets, while PMI is in charge of procuring PBO nets. However, a heated moment emerged in the meeting when Senator Ledamo Lekina sought clarity on the specification of nets proposed by the Global Fund and those procured by KEMSA.
Who advised the then PS to write to KEMSA to tell KEMSA that they had omitted this PBO, yet you're the primary recipient of the funds, yet you're the one who goes through the pre-tender requirements, and you notify the Ministry of Health, and I assume the former PS Josephine was in touch with Global Fund, and they had this information that Global Fund do not fund PBO nets. Why then would the tender be extended or be stopped?
Global Fund has never, because this is not the first campaign which Global Fund has done. It has never procured PBOs. The people who normally procure PBOs is PMI, and even the ministry knows, and even KEMSA knows.
According to the National Treasury's response, the Division of Malaria Program submitted the nets requirement in January 2022. On the 2nd of September 2022, the Global Fund approved the procurement of 12.6 million nets, and on the 30th of October 2022, the National Treasury received procurement requisition from the Ministry of Health and later wrote a procurement approval letter to KEMSA on the 7th of November 2022. The problem, however, emerged in the tender evaluation process.
The procurement process was found to be not in compliance with the PPADA. Therefore, the procurement was terminated before notification stage and transferred to Global Fund Food Procurement.
As the probe into the net scandal intensifies, the Ministries of Health and Treasury have reaffirmed that the 23 counties targeted in the mass malaria campaign will get the nets from November 2023 to January 2024. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, only 3% of Kenyans earn a monthly income of more than 50,000 shillings, while a whopping 38% of Kenyans do not receive a monthly income at all. These are part of a bracing set of numbers from trends and research firm Tifa. This even as 69% of Kenyans do not support the housing levy, with 54% of them feeling that the houses won't be delivered. Paul Kirobi with some significant numbers from that report.
Category of 50,000 and above, only half of them say that they're able to. That's how pressed Kenyans are, as we've all seen, inflation. I think.
Conducted between June 23rd and 30th, the latest survey by research firm Tifa has some eye-opening figures, numbers that speak to a dire outlook on the state of unemployment, monthly income, and even views on the latest policies proposed by the Kenya Kwanza government. For example, only 3% of Kenyans get monthly income of 50,000 shillings and above. Only 10% of Kenyans earn between 20 to 50,000 shillings monthly, while 12% of Kenyans earn between 5,000 5,000 to 10,000 shillings monthly income. Furthermore, a large number of people do not receive an income every month. Nearly 1/3 of Kenyans who are now jobless have never been employed, with 8% of jobless Kenyans having worked in the past. 1/3 of the Kenyan workforce is self-employed and only 1 in 10 employed full-time. What about savings with a high cost of living in the country due to high prices of commodities? The answers are interesting. In these harsh economic conditions, at least 44% of people earning between 20,000 to 50,000 shillings save some of their monies, while only 28% of those earning less than 5,000 shillings save their monies.
Because most prices have not decreased, so that's not very surprising. It wouldn't have surprised me if there was 100% who said none. If you people know of any kind of commodity that the price has gone down since last year, tell me, I'll start eating it. Peanuts? I don't know. Jugu? Sijui, ndizi? Okay, ndizi are still, when I buy them at the kiosk, are still 10 shillings each. They haven't changed.
What about President Ruto's plan, the housing levy, where the employed will be required to contribute at least 1.5% of their monthly salary? Well, 69% of Kenyans do not support this agenda. And even then, about 54% of Kenyans are certain the government will fail to deliver the houses, with only 11 believing that the houses will be delivered.
A quarter of them, 25%, say that sooner or later they expect to be paying the levy. I'm not sure how. Maybe they don't understand that it's only for formally employed people, like I guess most of you.
Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
And after the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, increased the price of petrol by 7.4% and made it to go at a record of 195.53 shillings. Now passengers will be forced to pay twice the fare they were paying before the fuel price increased, as drivers say that the passengers will incur the burden. Reporter Daniel Kihoro with that.
Despite a court order of suspending the implementation of New Finance Act of 2023, Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority EPRA increased the price of petroleum product, an increase in the tax charged on the petroleum product from 8 to 16%, which has not been well received by passengers. Drivers on their part also says that the action will disrupt their travel and slow down their business.
Tunaona kutakuwa na commotion kwa sababu kila mtu amefinyika. Kila mtu amefinyika, kusema tu tuongeze itoke 70 kuje 100, customer talalamika. Lazima itakuwa na commotion. Lazima tutakuwa na shida. Sijui itakuwa namna gani.
Juu hata unasapata driver akiendesha gari, unaweza pata upepe abiria kuanzia Nairobi mpaka Kericho, upate kama dereva hajaweka pesa kwa mfuko.
According to Benson Wanyoike, the chairman of Embasava Sacco, they will now pass the burden to passengers by increasing the fare.
Tumejaribu, lakini ile kitu ningesema imekuwa ngumu. Sababu unajua hasa kama serikali imepitisha maneno ya kuongeza mafuta na already wamedeclare hiyo, sisi hatuna budi. Tumejaribu kuongea na customers wakiteta, na ni kweli mwananchi wa kawaida amefinyika, lakini sasa tutafanya namna gani? Na ukienda kwa pump
Kenya will now have to embrace new price following the statement made by Treasurer CS Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, who says that the increase in taxes is the one of the measure that will help the country to avoid debt. Daniel Kihoro, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, co-chair of the Parliamentary Bipartisan Talks Committee between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, George Murugara, has confirmed the process of selecting new IEBC chairperson and commissioners will go on as previously planned. However, Azimio leader Raila Odinga says new IEBC officials cannot be selected through a process led by Kenya Kwanza alone, adding that such a commission will not represent interests of Kenyans at large. Micah Gungu with that.
Parliamentary bipartisan talks between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza may not resume anytime soon after Raila Odinga foot soldiers failed to attend a joint meeting today. The committee's co-chairperson George Murugara said despite a letdown from their colleagues in Azimio, they will proceed with plans of formulating a new independent electoral and boundaries commission, IEBC.
The process of recruitment by the selection panel, as far as we are concerned, is not hindered by any order, by any directive, or by anything from anyone, and therefore it should proceed as the law prescribes.
His sentiments came few hours after Azimio legislators were a no-show during a meeting at the Bomas of Kenya Tuesday. In early May, Azimio leaders dropped out of the talks after misunderstanding between the parties. Some of the issues they failed to agree on were bringing down the cost of unga, opening the 2022 IEBC presidential server, suspending recruitment of IEBC chairperson and commissioners, and calls by President Ruto to stop interfering with the affairs of the Jubilee Party.
The issues affecting the country, all the issues that are being mentioned and are affecting the country must be resolved in the legal process that is provided for in our laws, right from the Constitution to acts of parliament and regulations.
Murugara insisted that Azimio is yet to officially pull out of the talks, which means any decision taken by the committee will mean both parties were involved in decision-making, following the agreement framework signed by the two parties.
There are other clauses which provide for how a party or a part of the talks committee can actually exit. That exiting has not taken place, and this is why we say the talks remain.
And we hope that we will not reach that stage.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga, however, says new IEBC officials cannot be selected through a process led by Kenya Kwanza, adding that such a commission will not represent interests of Kenyans at large.
And these are not Kenya Kwanza elections. They are national elections. They are competition. So Kenya Kwanza cannot solely, alone, single-handedly, appoint the referee in the election.
With suspended recruitment of new members of the Electoral Commission poised to resume in earnest, Odinga insists their counterparts hoodwinked his team and will not continue engaging any longer.
They even refuse to stop that task force from proceeding ahead. The task force has said that they never stopped. They have never been told to stop at all. So they basically were just playing a game with us.
However, Murugara maintained that he would have committed an illegality should he have signed the letter ordering IEBC Selection Committee to stop its activities.
They were inviting me to commit an illegality by giving IEBC directives, and the IEBC does not take directives from anyone. So I actually told them I wasn't able to sign those letters because to me they were not proper. They were not well done.
According to Murugara, his co-chair Otiende Amolo knew that he would have gone against the law since the bipartisan committee had no powers to interfere with the work of IEBC Selection Committee. Mike Kaguongo, TV 47, Nairobi.
And in the same breath, Azimio coalition leader Raila Odinga has put President William Ruto on notice, telling him to brace for the launch of the country's third liberation this coming Friday in the opposition's resolve to rally the country to boycott tax and initiative civil disobedience at the Kamkunji grounds and selected regions countrywide. Odinga's Sabasaba protest launch will also see the opposition launch a nationwide signature collection launch to signify the opposition's rejection of the Kenya Kwanza regime. Our senior political affairs reporter Apollo Kamau with more.
A crucial sitting of Azimio principals gave the green light on the opposition's Friday Sabasaba protest launch, which will kick off a tax boycott and civil disobedience.
Ruto.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga terming it drastic action against the regime for ignoring Kenyans in the pursuit of punitive taxes, further criticizing the removal of crucial subsidies to cushion Kenyans from the high cost of living.
It has become clear that we are dealing with a dictator who also has no respect for wananchi. Ruto has become a heartless tyrant.
Azimio's fresh onslaught against the Ruto regime will be unveiled in Kamukunji and selected towns, aligned to the country's former 8 provinces, from which the opposition hopes to galvanize a non-violent movement, with fixed dates for the protests after Friday yet to be revealed.
But it is not just a Kamukunji in Nairobi. but a Kamkunji across the country where this third liberation will be launched.
The return of the Sabasaba protest is a throwback, originating and coinciding with the 7th of July 1990 Sabasaba protests, which Odinga was part of, that brought multi-party democracy eventually in 1981. The protests, a major test to President William Ruto, whose camp has termed the tax boycott as economic sabotage.
All I have told our friends Raila Odinga and company is let us not engage in destruction of property. Let us not engage in violence. Protests is perfect.
Whether the civil society movement will join Azimio in the demos, as they did in the 90s, remains to be seen. Apul Kamau, TV47.
A year into the tenure of the Kenya Kwanza government, could the country then be witnessing a repeat of the cold relations between the executive and the arm of government, or the executive arm of government, and the judiciary, as witnessed, that is, in the previous administration of Uhuru Kenyatta? Moige William with the details.
Then now you have this bench majority.
The recent ruling by a 3-judge bench which revoked the appointment of 50 chief administration secretaries by President William Ruto has further widened the wedge between the executive and the judiciary, opening a gateway of differences, with elected leaders allied to the head of state publicly telling of the Martha Koome-led arm. The Monday ruling by the Employment and Labour Relations Court, which quashed the appointment, receiving sharp criticism, with Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei leading the onslaught against judiciary, stating on his Twitter handle, and I quote in part, "The judiciary has gone rogue by ruling that creation of CAS's position is unconstitutional without considering merits of the case." The second time Senator took issue with the Chief Justice, questioning a track record in part of a tweet, and I quote, "Who has a track record of Chief Justice Martha Koome underperformance in judiciary? Judiciary must be accountable to Kenyans. It is not an exclusive club." End of quote. Senior counsel Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, who is perceived to be allied to President William Ruto, took to social media with a piece of advice to the ruling regime, which read, and I quote, "The 2010 Constitution is a most powerful antidote to impunity and unchecked executive power. It taught President Uhuru painful lessons. It will teach President William Ruto painful lessons. It will teach anyone who breaks it painful lessons." The Kenya Kwanza government also received an unfavorable court order from the court on June 30th, when High Court Judge Mugure Thande issued orders suspending the implementation of the Finance Act 2023 after President William Ruto assented to the bill on the 26th of June following its passage in Parliament. In the orders by Judge Mugure after Busia Senator Okiya Mtata moved to court challenging the act, slamming brakes on the implementation of the act. Although some government agencies such as EPRA have already commenced implementation in form of the review of fuel prices following an increment VAT on petroleum products to 16% from 8%. And on the 29th of May, High Court Judge Lawrence Mugambi issued an order suspending the decision of President Ruto to establish the Commission of Inquiry to probe the Shakahola deaths. In his ruling, Mugambi said it will not be in the public interest for the commission to start its sitting when Kenyans know the Senate and the National Police are still probing the Shakahola deaths. This followed after the Raila-led Azimio la Umoja coalition filed a case in court accusing President William Ruto of undermining the authority of the Danson Mungatana Senate-led ad hoc committee then already formed. While the three arms of government are required to work independently, the recent trend of such unfavorable rulings harkens to the early days that led to the frosty relationship between former President Uhuru Kenyatta and the judiciary. Perhaps only time can and will tell. Moige William, TV47.
All right, and from that point, we incorporate the wisdom of the gentleman that I have in studio this morning. Seated right next to me is the Member of County Assembly of Kileleshwa Ward, that is Honorable Robert Elias. Asante sana for creating time, sir. As well as the Member of Parliament for Matuga, that is in Kwale, right? It is in Kwale County.
Kwema kabisa Kwale.
Kwema kabisa, eh?
Baridi kidogo Nairobi, lakini
baridi kote kote. Nairobi?
Nairobi imezidi.
Na Kwale? Niliambiwa jana Mombasa kunanyesha au kwani tofauti na
kunyesha na baridi ni tofauti.
Oh, kwa hivyo zanyesha na usisikie baridi. I agree. There's so much cold right here in Nairobi. I think most of the people who are traveling in could be finding it difficult to manage. Mheshimiwa Kassim Sawa Tandaza, asante sana for creating time, as well as the former boss for Nairobi and equally governance and leadership experts, Mheshimiwa Philip Kisia. Thank you so much for creating time as well to speak to us this morning. These are the gentlemen that will help us decipher on the stories that we have picked this morning as we just try and understand how best we can run the nation forward. Mnataka aje Azimio kwa sababu sasa kama mtaki bipartisan talks, tunataka IEBC, mnasema tu tusipewe IEBC in the, using the select panel. What exactly is Azimio, angling for?
I think thank you so much, Linda, for having us here this very cold morning in Kiambu. Are you guys in Kiambu County?
It is Kiambu County. It is even worse from Nairobi, right?
Yeah, and with the Karura forest nearby. And we hope that the new Kenya Kwanza government is not going to destroy the forest because they have allowed logging. And
also planting of trees. Why do you overlook that?
Just passing yesterday around Kimende, you see the destruction of the forest around there, and you start to wonder if it's going to go. Because if you're seeing near the road is where people are so brazen like that, then you don't know what is happening inside. But Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, I think Azimio, we are moving into a platform where we are going to challenge the dictatorship. As a government, you have to lose some wars. And it's very unfortunate that the President Ruto's government is not realizing that they need to cede some ground in some regard, especially when you see yesterday's or the day before's attack of the judges who ruled against the Finance Act, and suspended it, and also the CAS case. And when the judges made their declaration, you saw senators, MPs allied to the president. The president has a bigger stake now. He needs to at least be the big man and know that even when he was the deputy president and he was saying that he was being frustrated and being mistreated, people supported him and say that, when he went to court against, through others, went to court against the President Uhuru's government, people say that, the President Uhuru's government was wrong to take a hard stance against the deputy president or Kenyans in many regards. But the same president, the person who was on the other side of the battle, is now doing the same, committing the same mistakes he blamed President Uhuru. So I think we are seeing a platform, we are seeing a situation where we might be breeding a dictator.
Wow.
Because he has to cede some ground, especially things which are affecting all Kenyans.
Well, and
we are happy.
Let's
give it to him that on the issue of IEBC, at least he tried to cede some ground. The Finance Act and the CSS, it is a very serious case.
But we still do not have a commission today, and so we'll be coming to that and as well. Basically, all this that you are alluding to. Allow us to take a quick short break, gentlemen, and then we come back, begin the conversation. Okay. But off card, cannot get to that. Apologies for the same, but yes, once again, Mheshimiwa Tandaza is here, as well as Mheshimiwa Philip Kisia and Robert Alai here. Mheshimiwa wa Kileleshwa wanasema Kiambu kuna baridi sana kushinda Nairobi. So here we are. Let's get straight to it. You have not answered my question.
Yes.
As to what really Azimio wants, especially when now the bipartisan talks, they say they're not going to be part of it. The last story that we have picked, or the second last, speaks to the fact that there was a joint meeting yesterday that Azimio did not attend. I want to believe that one of the reasons why President William Ruto perhaps, requested that we have a bipartisan approach to these matters was largely because of the question of the IEBC, because he had gazetted a select, committee or select panel to this, but then the Azimio side were like, no, this has not been questioned in the right way or the right direction. Hence, he decided, okay, well, let's come to the same ground and decide on what way forward, especially on the matter of the IEBC. Today, no bipartisan. Then the Kenya Kwanza side declares that, well, we'll have now the select committee that was there originally, swing to action. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga says, well, we cannot have an IEBC that is selected by the Kenya Kwanza team alone. Is the select panel a Kenya Kwanza team alone, looking at the formation and the rigorous, process that was there in terms of, lobbying and also elections and picking of these individuals?
Well, thank you, Linda. And I'm glad that you've noticed that Mheshimiwa Alai can't answer that question.
Right.
Because the answer would be, what are they up to? Nowhere. Because their expectation about the bipartisan talks, and when he talks about sitting ground, is some form of handshake, some form of Baba coming into government.
Right.
And these have been made plainly, clearly that it won't happen. But one would still hope that it will happen. Probably now they are thinking that the Mandamano will make it happen. Initially, when the bipartisan talks started, there were basically 4 points, but they wanted to include everything, hoping that that will bring in to the government. But clearly, the main issue was the IEBC to start with. And for sure, President Dr. William Samoei Ruto followed the law that has been there, that was used by Baba himself and President Uhuru then to pick the Cherera 4, you see. And it's unfortunate that the Cherera 4 didn't save Baba despite having been picked by them. Now it is the same law which is being used, and Baba cries foul and said, no, it can't be, it's not fair. Fine, it's not fair. Way forward, let's discuss, see it. They don't want it because they know, even if they were to pick 7 of them, I don't think Baba would be the president.
Why do you argue that the Cherera 4 were picked by these 2 individuals? We understand.
It is the same law. Yeah, it is the same process.
Yes.
When Baba and Uhuru were together, isn't it? So what has changed now that the same process is not fair for this country, is not good for this country?
Okay, so why did you guys have to, bow down to that kind of pressure? Don't you think they're dragging you behind in this case?
For sure they are, but you see now, if there is anything that is so important and so crucial in this country, is about the transparency of the elections. And in any country, of course, it would be bad 4 years before the election to give the impression, or anybody have fears that already 2027 is done deal because of IEBC, you see. But having regard to the same laws that were used then, and the same laws, that there would be no reason to do that. But even after having ceded that ground, they still say no, because the intention was not really an independent, because already IEBC will be independent anyway, constitutionally and by law.
Yeah.
But they were using that to think that they would somehow get some form of handshake, come into this is the main thing. And I can assure you, Linda, for as long as we maintain, which I know the president has been very categorical and his deputy, that there will be no handshake. Baba will always be moving from one point to the other, one ground to the other, shifting here. hoping that it will happen.
I would be keen to understand what was the intention of the president when he suggested that we go the bipartisan way. Was it a way to tame Baba? But for how long? Was it a way to acknowledge that, well, to a large extent, maybe the opposition side could be having some argument and therefore, it would be proper to listen to them? Or what exactly was he intending? Because by and large, this is a process that drags and staggers his performance. Why would he have, recommended this if perhaps he knew very well that it would not land us anywhere? Mheshimiwa.
Well, Linda, thank you for having me in Kiambu County. Always a pleasure.
Muthaiga North, eh? Muthaiga North.
Being Muthaiga, the other Muthaiga.
Yeah?
I'm happy to meet my friend Alai and, of course, meeting Mheshimiwa Kasim. Now, I think, the history of the electoral bodies in this country has been very poor.
Yeah.
We are Kenyans. None of us was born yesterday. We've been here for some time. At least I've been here for the last 5 or so, 6, 7 election cycles. We cannot say that those bodies, to any extent, have been independent. Especially the last one. The IEBC, the Independent Electoral Body that has just completed its term. I mean, it was a complete failure. I mean, I have no better words to describe the IEBC that was led by my friend Wafula Chebukati. I mean, there were so many flaws, and some of us pointed the flaws into elections. Yeah. Nothing was done. So I think what is important, and I respect the views of my brother here, every political party, every political player wants to ascend to the position of leadership, of leading this country. So you'll do whatever it takes, either to retain power or to get power, okay? So there's nothing wrong that that the President, William Samoei Ruto, is doing, is making every effort, is making every maneuver to make sure that he retains power.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong, absolutely, in Mheshimiwa, the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, trying to create his space. But I think what is most important, and that is where we should be heading to, this country is bigger than the two gentlemen.
Right.
The day we discover that this country does not belong to you and me, that it belongs to all of us, then the day will start behaving. So an electoral body is very important and it's crucial. You must instill confidence in people. The minute people start doubting that even the panel that you have is already compromised or is leaning towards a particular direction, then you already start creating problems from the word go. I was hoping that now that William Samoei Ruto is a president, that this time, for the first time in the longest history, that we'll get it right. But we don't seem to be getting it right. We seem to be so focused on who becomes the president of the Republic of Kenya in 2027 through this so-called independent body. And all the independent bodies in this country are no longer independent. They cease to be independent after Emeritus, the late President, His Excellency Mwai Emilio Kibaki, left office. After that, these offices are of no use to Kenyans. In fact, I am preparing a petition to get rid of all these independent bodies. Now, let's get back to the point.
Okay.
IEBC must have a representation of all stakeholders. You see, when you say, Mheshimiwa is saying that the president is operating within the law, is operating within the laws that are there, the Constitution. And I agree to a large extent. But we must always remember, that all the powers that we are exercising, including Mheshimiwa, including my friend Alai, are only delegated. So when you are proceeding with an issue without taking into account or without remembering that you are exercising those powers which are only delegated, and not considering the person who has actually given those powers. You're not taking into account the person who has given those powers. It is a sad state of affairs. So my appeal to both the President,
right,
William Samoei Ruto, and His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga is to put this country before themselves. Is to understand that, we can't be in an election mood 24/7. Now, Mheshimiwa said that Raila wants to
get a handshake.
Wants a handshake. Some of us are out here, at least he's in the county assembly.
He's a member of parliament himself.
You are a member of parliament. And, most of the times, when wananchi, some of us are out here and we are crying, you will go and tell the king that he's not naked. You will tell the king that actually those guys are not hungry, that what they need is cake because there is no loaf of bread. We are now telling you that wananchi are hungry and are angry, and if you don't, if you don't repair your ways sooner than later, the consequences are going to be severe. I know and I'm not putting fear in.
But he spends quality time, down at the constituency.
I am not putting fear in him. What I'm saying is that outside here,
it is bad.
Things are bad.
I
I came here in an Uber, and I normally engage. I've been talking to this guy, and the things he told me got me scared.
Mheshimiwa spends quality time with the people. He should be knowing some of these things. And I believe that he does know some of these things because I have been to his constituency very early in the morning with him. And the numbers of people, now I understand why they run away from their homes, because people flock his house, and perhaps he has to go back to his pocket to make
That's
sure.
That's why he's here, not in Matuga.
That is why he's here, because
the session is on. The session is on.
But we come back to you
yes.
on the very same question. It is well, the president could decide, fine, the interest of the people. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga could decide the interest of the people. But we should be having a commission formed right now, because they are constituencies, or one constituency that does not have a representative as it stands right now. Plans are not underway in relation to this. We know there's stipulated times in the Constitution, and there are county assemblies that do not have, or wards that do not have representatives today. What does that mean? I mean, if we're looking at these individuals and hoping that they would give us a solution to the problem, if we all agree at some point in time, or a majority would agree that most of these institutions are not functioning independently, what is the big deal then if they're not, if they're set up by the very same select committee and we proceed anyway? They have never been independent, as many would argue.
I see the desperation of Kenya Kwanza in, bringing back the talks, the select committee. And it only came about, the announcement came about when we announced the resumption of the demos. Mm-hmm. And we saw the president announcing very fast, and the select committee leadership from the Kenya Kwanza side.
Do you think the demos will have any form of impact?
It has always had an impact. It has always had an impact, and that's why the IEBC recruitment.
Kenyans felt shortchanged when there was this conversation of the bipartisan, because, well, then they were in the streets for the better part of the Thursdays and Mondays, and then all of a sudden you are part and parcel of government discussing this, and all of a sudden we're not getting out of it. Why do you suppose Kenyans will believe that you have any form of goodwill?
It's a country for all of us. And sometimes, the demos, we don't do the demos because we love running around and, consuming the tear gas and throwing stones and not. We are doing it because of Kenyans. And we are telling the president that, he has to listen to Kenyans. Even when he has all the machineries to stop everybody, talking or speaking out against his leadership, he has to listen to Kenyans. And we don't think that he's ready to do that. Seeing what he has done with the CAS, seeing what he has done with the Select Committee, and seeing now what he has done even with the ruling on the Finance Act, I don't think that he's ready to listen to Kenyans. And when he realizes that he doesn't have all the powers, the machinery, and the influence of the power which President Moi, the late, had, which President Kenyatta and President Kibaki had, and didn't misuse, you know, and even the kind of influence and power Moi had in this country, at some point he had to sit ground. I don't think that the president realizes what he's messing with, because, you know, when people lose hope, we have seen, I am a representative of at the lowest level. And when you see people lose hope and start to think of a day at a time, that person, you know, can kill, because he's not thinking of a neighbor as somebody he is going to live with after the demo.
The president is trying to instill peace in the best way he knows how. Why is it that you, as Azimio, why is it that other people feel like maybe the only form of instilling peace should be their way and not the president's way, which he says, let us tax our way up to prosperity? I don't want to say that.
You just say that
loudly.
You just say,
lest I am.
You just say that. You tax our way into prosperity, which is not going to happen. You see, we see the president lecturing the Bretton Woods in UK. You know, we see a different president when he gets out of the country.
And he does so well when he's there.
Yes, you know, we say, what happens the moment he lands at JKIA? Totally different person, totally different argument. You know, either his way, he's collecting 20, 30, 40 MPs into State House, giving them photo sessions, just for score political points. I am very sure there's nothing substantive he's discussing with these people, because everything else, they have to pass through these honorable members who don't attend the same in Parliament. And, you know, all the allocations we get, there's no special allocation you're going to get from the president. You know, the country changed. We have devolved leadership. What is he going to get? Is he going to get the special status allocation? Everything else, kila mtu lazima share what's... So there's nothing else you see these MPs of ours are going to achieve there. What the president is doing is that he's going to is trying to take photo ops and to score political points and to tell us that, you know, he has a bigger crowd to stop us. What we are telling the president is very simple. Please come to the table. Come to the table.
How? If not bipartisan.
You know the moment.
So basically, how?
No, listen. If the bipartisan is going to happen, let it be serious, because he has not been serious with it.
The seriousness of it will be if the two individuals are involved now, the president and the right honorable. That is how serious it will be, or what exactly?
You know when you have the bipartisan team from your end, but you don't want them to actually be in the talks. Because what has been happening is that when Azimio is serious, the Kenya Kwanza is not serious in attending, even, you know, coming for the meetings. But when we withdraw, they start complaining. When we resume the street demos, they say that, please come to the table. You have seen Honorable Matundura all the time. You call for a demo, what has he been doing? He's been saying that, please come back to. But I'm very sure it's a very good script from the president.
Now I understand, and I agree with you to a large extent, that Allah is not giving me an answer as to what they want.
Because he doesn't have answers, I have given you the answer. And should that happen today, I can assure you Allah will come back here and say, well, now Kenya is peaceful, now we are going to develop, now there is no more here because you come to the table. But I would want to, Mheshimiwa Allah, with due respect, sometimes you need to get your facts right. At no one point did the Kenya Kwanza side leave the table on the bipartisan. It is their side which has always been moving away. I think that is on record, and it should actually maybe withdraw if we had forgotten, or give us an instance where Kenya Kwanza side has actually refused to go for the bipartisan talks. Two, my colleague, Mheshimiwa Excellency here, Kisia, I agree with you that the commission, the IEBC, has always had some issues, some challenges. I agree with you, and I think that is common knowledge. But also to come here and say the independence of IEBC actually died with the exit of the late President Kibaki, I don't think that is also factual. If we remember, the 2007, that was the IEBC then, and how it handled, to the extent that lights were switched off to finish the tally, to the extent that swearing in was done. I think we've had issues with IEBC. And
very to moment.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be right to say that at one point the independent commissions were so perfect, and now it's not. But I agree, the way forward. The way forward is what the president had actually agreed to. Remember, he does not have the powers by the Constitution and by law for him to actually stop the recruitment process. All these are in law, and I think though none of us could be a lawyer here, but as leaders we know that the president has to act by the Constitution and by law. For him, having at least somehow, through the wisdom of the commission, which was the panel, which was to recruit the IEBC to say that, well, let's give some time. Of course, that was the decision by the panel. Yeah. And to the extent that now we cannot actually, as Mia said, they never, or they'll not go back. They know they're going to do what they know best. Then the process can only continue because that is the law, you see. And you don't expect anybody, because if he stops it himself, then you have the right to go to court again and say, look, he has broken the law as the head of state.
Was it not a breaking of the law to incorporate this process and direct it to the bipartisan? If we all understand that the law dictates this and that, a formation of, perhaps a committee that is going to interview and vet these people, and then all of a sudden you decide, well, in the interest of Azimio side or in the interest of Kenyans, if you want to put it that way, then for a moment let's shelve this. And I mean, I kept asking, could these individuals not, be allowed to proceed to court and say that, well, we went through the process, the rigorous process, we are here, we've been gazetted, and then all of a sudden you're telling us that we're not going to do this duty that is enshrined upon us by the Constitution?
No, you see, I agree with you if that's what happened, that they were stopped. But remember, the panel also are Kenyans. They are also leaders, and they will also understand the gravity of these issues. Given that there were no strict timelines, then they had the leeway to say, we can postpone, we can do this, to see what happens. But to the extent that now, it's obvious, they have said that they are no longer interested in the bipartisan talks. It's like they have given up. And of course, now the law has to take its course. But to me, what is very important here is what Kisia has said, that this country is bigger than all of us here. We need this country. If the mandamanos will go as per the Constitution, that is peaceful demonstration and picketing, then they can go ahead, and I think none other than the president himself has made it very clear that he has no problem with that. It's a constitutional right. They can go on until the time when, after 5 years, 2027 comes, we elect, and then they go on again. That is okay for as long as the Constitution is there. But if it means now coming to the issue of mass destruction, then that is another point which no Kenyan would actually allow, not even them, because this will not be able to segregate whether you as me or Kenya Kwanza, and that is the problem. They start, and I think even last time when they started with the peaceful in quotes, but they were preparing for the destruction.
Right.
And now you don't need a messiah to say now they want to go back to the destruction again. And at what point, who is actually getting the advantage of that destruction? Is it Kenya Kwanza? Is it Azimio or Osu? Is the ordinary person. We are only aggravating the suffering of that same person where we are talking about. I agree with Kisia that the ordinary person is not in a better position, but you should also remember, this is not just an event. It has been a process over the years, we are taking it that the suffering started on 9th of August last year. This is not true. I think we will all agree. The suffering has been there. It has been a process. Is the Kenya Kwanza doing anything to reverse that process? Yes. Is the Azimio trying to do anything to reverse that process? No. They want it aggravated. Of course, probably for their political mileage. But actually, the person who suffers is the ordinary Mwananchi who is down there.
All right.
Otherwise, the strategies that are in place now, the Kenya Kwanza government is reversing that process of the ordinary Kenyan suffering the way he has been suffering before.
All right. Mheshimiwa Kisia, I look at all the papers, and they speak about the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and we listened to them yesterday. And Saba Saba, historically, we know, the processes that have been going on, in the country in relation to Sabasaba, the significance of, liberation and these talks of liberation. And the Right Honorable Raila Odinga says that, well, we are facing another moment of liberation. He reminds the President, William Ruto, just how much can he achieve with this, looking at how the President has managed to tame the Azimio side so far?
Well, Linda, I think, let me put it this way. I think it will be wrong for us to talk about taming, because you're not put in the office to tame people.
Yeah.
You've been given a job that has a very clear job description. So if you're in office to tame your opponents, then of course you are doing no good to this country. You're not doing any good to yourself.
Right.
And sooner than later, you may discover that taming may not help you.
Okay.
Okay? So let's move away from the old order of doing things. Like my brother Ali said, the presidents were there before, and I will exclude, with a lot of respect, His Excellency Emeritus Emilio Mwai Kibaki. The two presidents who were there before him, Jomo one, or Kenyatta one, and then Moi. Those fellows had absolute power. They could do what they did, and they, to a large extent, were operating within the Constitution, the parameters of the Constitution. It is only Emilio, Emeritus President, who came in and said, I will hold and I will govern this country by the Constitution. And I think to a large extent, he was extremely successful. In fact, none other than His Excellency the President William Samoei Ruto has acknowledged that fact, that Emilio did a superb job. He has acknowledged. So why my brother Kasim is having challenges admitting
I was playing the devil's advocate.
No, it was on a lighter note. It was on a lighter note. I wanted him to smile. He has not been smiling. I don't know why. I think it is because I've increased the price, the cost of fuel, and Mananchi
and why have they?
That's why he can't even smile.
The order. Yes.
Sorry. So anyway.
Yeah.
So I think what Raila is trying to do, because I've not spoken to him, I'm not here to speak on his behalf.
I must have spoken.
I'm here to give the side of my story, whatever ideas I have. I think if there's any liberation that is to happen, the so-called third liberation, I think it should be an economic liberation.
Yeah.
Okay? Because other liberations, to a very good extent, have been achieved. What is actually ailing Kenya? What is ailing Africa? Is the economics part of it.
Yeah.
We've got it totally wrong, and unless we get it right, we are leading our people into total poverty.
How would he get it right if he is going to try a different approach to things and this will be castigated? No. Do the same thing that have not yielded much results?
No. What do you say the same thing? I mean, how do you pick it? How do you set your agenda?
Okay.
By having public engagements, by explaining yourself, that this is what I intend to do so that I can, I can liberate you economically. You cannot do that under closed curtains or under the carpet. You have to come out publicly and explain yourself. So I think there's nothing wrong with His Excellency Raila, coming up with what he's calling the third liberation through the Sabasaba calling rally. There's nothing wrong. The Constitution allows him. But again, as Mheshimiwa Kasim said, it must be done within the confines of the law. My expectation would be that those who are currently in power will also facilitate the process without having another underhand. Because we've seen people going to the streets and other fellows organizing goons to disrupt people who are picketing and people who are demonstrating peacefully. So there's nothing wrong. I mean, it's a very sad state of affair that you can, as a nation, you can leave the burden of fixing things to a few people. I think to fix this country, we need everybody's participation.
Yeah.
We need everybody's goodwill. Fixing of this country cannot be left to Parliament. We've seen what they have done to us in the last 9 months. People are suffering, people are in pain, people are crying, people are bleeding. But Mheshimiwa here is okay. I mean,
Mheshimiwa, you'll come back and respond to that.
One second, Mheshimiwa and the Lords are okay.
Are you?
Because they are earning a good salary.
Okay.
In fact, SRC has already proposed, even before they consider Mwananchi who are suffering, even before they consider Mwananchi who is suffering, they have already proposed that these Mheshimiwas, again, on top of that million they're earning, they should be given more money.
And because they have a lot, they say...
What a third state of affair.
Let's take a short break and then come back on that. All right, welcome back, gentlemen. Mheshimiwa Robert Alai, Mheshimiwa Kasim Sawa Tandaza, as well as Mheshimiwa Philip Kisia. Mheshimiwa raises a concern as to the conduct of the members of parliament in the House. Kenyans are raising concern as to their conduct in the House as well as outside the House. And I think it's only fair that we speak to this matter. Are they overlooking the Chapter 6 of the Constitution as to the question of credibility? And that then would involve discipline. And when I say are they, I also mean you, because you're a representative of the people. Yeah.
I don't know what specific incident you're
Yesterday's incident, we all witnessed.
You know
a friend of the show, Mheshimiwa Mbai is a friend of the show, And so everybody was sending me this clip. Angalia rafiki yako. So I had to bear the brunt of that. And so when you do something, when Council Msawat does it, you'd better know that I have to carry that burden. And so I carried the burden proper. And so I'm bringing it to you people to as well help me carry it.
You know what I saw was unfortunate, but also we have to understand that everybody or every one of us has an individual character. So we cannot lump it in all of the elected leaders. I think we have more than 349 elected MPs, Senate.
Let's say elected and nominated as
elected,
well. Nominated.
All of them are elected.
Yes.
All of them are elected. Special elect and others elected.
Appointed ones also.
Yeah. No, there isn't. I don't know if there's an appointed MP.
Not MP. Now I'm talking about leaders.
Okay. Yeah, yes. The appointed leaders. But when I saw the behavior of the MP, I took it as an individual because we are more than 2,200 of us in the county assemblies. So it's a huge number. And everybody comes with its own background and upbringing and ways of handling things, its own personal emotions, mental health. With the challenges of Kenya Kwanza government, you expect even the people who are in the side of Kenya Kwanza to have issues of mental health because the pressure of the economy. You see the MP, in fact, that was the evidence that this government is actually hurting even its own children. The MP wanted a free connection. Hawezi kulipa.
Okay.
He wanted free connection. Hawezi kulipa. That's what the bottom line is that he is suffering. The president needs to know that the Finance Act is going to make people suffer more. This is an MP earning more than 1 million shillings. What are other Kenyans going through? Okay. If an elected MP is not willing to pay for connection, power connection, and he now wants shortcuts, he grabs the Kenya Power officials by the collar and say, piga simu, gari rudi hapa, ifanye connection. You see? I sympathize with the MP. I knew. He might have not wanted that route. He might not have wanted that route. He might not have the courage to admit before the members of the public that he cannot afford a connection to his own home.
Because of
the economy, Kenya Kwanza.
And the conduct. Mheshimiwa, the first moment when, and I know we don't have to go back to that, and now this is within the House, I looked for you. I was trying to see whether you are there and what you will say. And I know sometimes it's okay to be absent, to be present and all that. Yeah. But generally, your conduct at the level of Parliament and outside, not you in particular, but representatives of the people of Kenya, I think is basically what, Mheshimiwa was raising as a concern. There is that feel that we have lost hope, especially on the members of Parliament who are supposed to, speak to these laws, the budgets and all that.
You see, Linda, we are all Kenyans. And even us as leaders, we are from Kenya. We are Kenyans. And we are representative of the people. When the people themselves are not as good, they are not as per chapter 6 in terms of integrity, you remember we are Kenyans. But we do our best, of course, as leaders, not to be as rogue or to be as bad or to go against the law as the other ordinary Kenyan does. But the point is, when it comes to the chapter 6, there are several state agencies which are supposed to actually safeguard, actually make sure that leaders especially abide by the conduct, abide by chapter 6. And for sure, we have to admit, I personally have to admit that those agencies have not been doing well. They have not been very serious on their work when it comes to establishing. And of course, when you talk about integrity, it should not just be for leaders. Integrity is meant to be for everybody. When you look at some government corporations or entities like Kenya Power, we know they have several challenges. I think it has been in the media, or it's common knowledge, that people even pay and they don't get connection in time. Some complain that they paid 3-4 years ago. They have not gotten connection. So PLC itself has its own challenges. But that doesn't mean, as leaders, we should also act rogue. And I agree with Mheshimiwa Alai here that it goes to sometimes to the individual character.
Yeah.
But given that Mheshimiwa Ambai, we've shared this platform before, and as you've said, is your friend, it's also good if you can get his side of the story. You know, sometimes the media, they like sensationalizing things, actually. The headlines sometimes they put on the papers, and when you read the story, can be quite different.
Right.
But I think you also need to call Mheshimiwa Ambai. I'm sure he'll not shy off to come and actually say what he said. But we know there are challenges with the government agencies, with KPLC, not only KPLC. With, you know, even when you talk about even water connections, it is still the same. You don't receive water, they come for the bills. When you tell them to take the meter, they tell you we cannot take this meter until you clear previous bills for 6-7 months, which you've never had water. So these are the challenges that we are facing. But to me, the best that can happen for this country is for every Kenyan to actually take responsibility at his or her own level, at whatever level he is. Yeah, not just because in an MCA, not just because I'm a member of parliament, but I think I owe it to myself and to the nation and to my conscience that I need to have good morals. I should not steal simply because if I steal, it's against chapter 6. I should know that if I steal, if I misuse CDF, it is going to affect so many people who actually are dependent on that one for their basic needs, you know, not because there is ESCC or because I'll be flagged off by the media. I think the moment Kenyans generally reach that point, then we should be having it.
And you've been in such a huge office. Yeah. Let us all agree that in as much as we say that as Kenyans we should, you know, carry ourselves with some level of decorum, reality is that what is expected of you as leaders is a notch higher. And because it comes with ramifications to it. We have seen the likes of Baraza losing their jobs just because of these lazy utterances and, you know, acts.
Correct.
I mean, it becomes difficult to even defend such.
You know, Linda, while I agree with my brother, Mheshimiwa Kasim, that it could be a reflection of our society.
Yeah.
Because the people who are, I really feel constrained using the word a leader, because I've always told you there's nothing like a leader. So, but the people who are exercising leadership for the time being come from this society called Kenya. So if this society called Kenya is full of rogues, you don't expect angels in the county assembly, you don't expect angels in the National Assembly. However, and that's why we have a rider, chapter 6, talks about integrity, leadership and integrity. And it's very clear and specific that your acts in private and in public will be put to scrutiny if you have been given a position of leadership. So you are a notch higher than the other ordinary mwananchi. You are supposed to mirror good behavior. You are supposed to be a good example. Because if you are rogue, and remember, you are representing, like I don't know how many people Mheshimiwa representing, maybe 50,000, whatever.
About 200.
There are 200,000 people. 200,000 people look at Mheshimiwa. And they could easily be influenced, especially those who are still below 12, could be easily influenced by how Mheshimiwa behaves in private or in public. So this is what I have to say about the incident, because it was all over social media. It was most unfortunate. But maybe because even Mheshimiwa could be feeling the pain of paying the electricity bills. He could be feeling the pain because it's painful. I can tell you, it is painful. I don't know about you. I don't know about my two other colleagues here. It is painful. The cost of electricity in this country is so high that if you are not feeling the pain, you must be just a thief. So Mheshimiwa cannot have taken the law onto his hands. If he was not connected, and being a Mheshimiwa, if he was not connected to electricity, which is unfortunate, if he was not connected, he, given the office that he is holding, he would have written a letter to the agency, to Kenya Power and Lighting, and requested that they come and install power and the transformer and the meter, not only to him, but to people who live around him. Now, if, I can imagine, that's why I agree with my brother alive. If Mheshimiwa
to behave that way
can be ignored, no, forget about even behaving.
All right.
Because that could be in a way of, that is his behavior.
Yeah.
That could be him. But if Mheshimiwa cannot be connected, and he has to fight small people, and and harass small people, what about common mwananchi who cannot even fight, who cannot even, they cannot even write a letter, and even if they wrote a letter, that letter cannot get to the MD. What about the millions of Kenyans who are not holding such an office? I think Mheshimiwa Mbai has exposed the agency, has exposed everybody. He has laid everything bare. He is saying, I'm helpless, I am Mheshimiwa, I can't do anything. Let's cry for Kenya. I cry for this country. Because if Mheshimiwa is feeling the pinch, he can't even be connected. What about the common man? But again, let me come back to Mheshimiwa, because he's bounded by chapter 6. He swore by the Bible or by the Quran or whatever. I am a Quaker, I don't swear by anything, I just lift my hand. He took the law onto his hands by harassing junior people, yeah? And by now, if my sister, Nancy Baraza, and I'm saying that this country had moved to a greater trajectory during Mwai Kibaki's time, if my sister, Nancy Baraza, by just pinching somebody's nose, pinching, this guy was actually kicking people, he was actually throwing blows, he was actually tearing shirts, he did all manner of things, and he's still there, and Mheshimiwa is not even talking. Mheshimiwa is saying, we saw it. It was not a movie.
Not about the media.
We saw this thing happen. And Mheshimiwa is not even saying, my colleague should have resigned by yesterday. He's saying, oh, give him an opportunity to, okay, give an opportunity to be heard, but we saw. And we're not blind. We saw what happened. We expect that when they get back to Parliament, starting with Mheshimiwa Kasim, that he will ask his colleague either to apologize to the people of Kenya or resign. Well, I mean, it's unfortunate.
All right, let's hope
it's unfortunate.
Well, Mheshimiwa, I will save you from that, unless you want to say something.
I will just add 1 minute that, there are government agencies who are expected to act on such issues. Not so long ago, we had such an incident of one of our Mheshimiwa in central Kenya who actually slapped an IEBC official. I think that is also still fresh in our memory.
Former Bahati member of Parliament had an issue.
And nothing happened. So we agree that the government agencies responsible for such activity, the DCI, the ESC, I cannot really spare them. They need to up their game. It's not about just a particular Mheshimiwa, but to me, I will look at it generally across board on their conduct. How far do they go in such investigations? How far does the judiciary also handle such matters when it comes to prosecution? I think when it comes to those agencies, from where I sit, there is a lot that needs to be done.
Well put. All right. So are we about to witness another tussle between the judiciary and the executive? Morgan William has carried that story, and in the best way possible tries to frame it as a question as opposed to, a person who's already made judgment in relation to what we have witnessed. The Finance Act, we have witnessed the CAS is being stopped from, conducting the activities at the level of the office. And the Kenya Kwanza team has said that they will proceed to challenge in court. We have even seen the Attorney General, filing a petition as to the same. I mean, what exactly is playing out? Or it's the law?
No, I think Kenyans, like we always say, is that, in other situations, countries have mafia, but in Kenya, we have the mafia of our country.
Okay.
And what we are experiencing is that the media, the judiciary is trying to cleanse itself. Because we have come from a period where we are blaming the judiciary for being captive to the state and doing all manner of things, including, using a very strong language in their judgment of the Supreme Court. And I think that one left them with an egg on their face. And for the period, I've seen a very consistent situation where the judiciary is coming out, letting Kenya Kwanza criticizing, hit them below the belt, and they don't respond. But you saw yesterday when a media house did a story, the statement which came from the judiciary was even strong. I was wondering that these MPs and senators who are attacking the judiciary, they are not being seen by the communication department of the judiciary. They only saw the media, and they attacked the media, and they say that we don't swear anybody are the permanent secretaries, the ministers, and so on, and so you stop reporting about these things. But now, no statement was coming out to call out senators who are berating judges, who are berating court officials on Twitter and so on, including senior lawyers. You see, and I think that one is very unfair. I think what Kenya Kwanza is trying to do with the judiciary is that they went through a period where they had a pact, and now you have to clear them and bring them back, and now Azimio can trust them for a period of maybe 2 years, and then we go back to their usual characters. I think in Kenya na mafia yake. What we are seeing in Kenya na mafia yake, but I hope that it's a good win, even if they're classing themselves. The case of the CAS is a great win for Kenyans. The statement is out there. This is an illegal post. If you must have it, please realize that you must be within the bracket where Kenyans can afford it. And also the issue of the Finance Act. You saw it's been declared, it's been suspended. And we hope that they declare it unconstitutional to make some of these charges, including making, taxing insurance compensation. How do you tax somebody? Insurance is supposed to indemnify you, return you to your previous position. So if you are going to be given a compensation that you are going to be returned to a position where you were maybe financially 700, 800,000 or 1 million, 2 million, and so on, then the government decides to take a portion of it. Have you been indemnified? Yeah? Who is going to pay that tax? Is it the person, the insurance company, or the person being compensated? I think we have to address some of these questions because it's very tricky, and Kenya Kwanza needs to realize, like I said, even the President Ruto will realize that he needs to lose some of these wars. Because at some point, if he wins every one of them, Kenyans will come and ask him, si ulipata kila kitu ulikuwa unataka. So now, umeshindwa kuendesha nchi. You see?
You speak as though you think he's going to fail.
He's going to fail. There's no magic in this. You see, you cannot succeed by taxing others.
If he
in fact,
question the opposition, because we'll say
the good thing with us is that when you're in our position and you have at least a trust of some of the officials of the government, even people at KRA, they are telling you that if the president was smart, he should have reduced VAT to half of what it was. Then more people would be interested in paying. Let me tell you, yesterday I've been in the tech space for some time, and yesterday, and I like, gauging what phones, devices, computers are charged. Now, there's a huge cargo held at Eldoret. This cargo is of phones, computers, gadgets, cameras, because President Kibaki, in his own wisdom, introduced the consolidated taxations. You see? For some of the cargo. This one was to grow the penetration of the mobile phones, the penetration of the computers, the tech, the mainstreaming of tech in our daily lives, and so on. And it grew. I made Kenya a Silicon Savannah in some regard. But now the president wants individual products being evaluated and taxed. You see? And that one is bringing a backlog. But also is going to make these devices very expensive. Not only to the final consumer, but also to the number of the people doing the trade at Ludoli Avenue. This is affecting them. For the last 2 weeks, they cannot access their cargo. If today you want a new computer, I'm very sure you're going to struggle with the shops to get one because their cargo has been held. They have held meetings with KRA. Wanaambia kwamba kila container fungua, If you have 2,000 phones inside there, we check one by one. But why did the previous president introduce this? What brought about that need for consolidated taxation on some of these products? You see, so this is where the president is messing. If you reduce it, now you know what is going to happen. You're going to get 1 or 2 billionaires who can import phones, who can import computers, and now determine the price for the whole market. Okay. These young people, you go to every town, Nakuru, Kisumu, Mombasa, so on. You get these small shops doing M-Pesa, doing Airtel Money, selling phones, selling computers, you know, and so on. They are going to run out of business. You see? And it's going to affect the country. So less people are going to be able to pay tax. Because now you're greedy. You think that you tax everybody. He's recruiting a 5,000 force. We know that the RTS in Eldoret, recruits training school. There's you will come and see it.
And that's why I asked you why.
KRA. Why are you recruiting these tax officers, the enforcement officers?
Here we are, and the question is simple. Let me, first of all, engage Mheshimiwa Kisia on this, and I know we have to delicately approach it because this matters as well in court, or perhaps, you know, are going to be challenged more in court at a higher level. The CAS is certainly, of course, the Finance Act, and today we still are paying. You were complaining about fuel, and you ask yourself, is it in defiance of what the courts have declared? I mean, could it have been halted for a moment until then it is challenged at a higher court? Or what exactly is happening, and how much does the president then seek to achieve with this? If this is the argument of Robert Alai, and one of the reasons why, you know, Okiya Mtata managed to challenge this successfully is because he says we have not gotten projections of what exactly then the Kenya Kwanza government intends to achieve after, you know, raising the taxes. Let's talk even about the fuel levy. Fine, it was this price, now we're raising it 16%. These are the projections that we are expecting, you know, after a certain time.
Linda, thank you. Now, let me be a little bit cautious when I be talking about the issue of taxation, because it's a matter still live in our courts. So try and be a bit careful. Yeah. But it was sad because there was a ruling that was made by the courts. And you know, a ruling that cannot please all of us because there are two competing forces. There are those who are for and those who are against. Yes. Now, when the court pronounced itself and said that the finance, not even act, I think now is not bill, it's an act of parliament, should be halted. Yeah. It should have been halted. So I decided that, you know, being a law-abiding citizen, I knew that the president has made several pronouncements with the effect that he will uphold the constitution, he will obey the courts, and, you know, so I decided to drive around to check on the fuel prices. Because, you know, any adjustment upward on the fuel cost affects everything else. Affects transportation costs, affects the cost of goods and services, and so on and so forth. And because I decided to engage the pump attendants. And I said, but there's a court order. Do you know what some of them told me? That we don't even nowadays, we don't bother with court orders. We don't bother. So I said, why don't you bother? Serikali ndio ikisema tunafuata. So we don't bother. I think it is a very dangerous place to get into. We are getting into a very dangerous space because you're encouraging anarchy. Because today, as a person sitting on the seat of power, you are ignoring court orders. Tomorrow, you should not expect the common mwananchi to respect a court order or even to respect any laws that are passed by Parliament or the County Assembly. So let me talk very briefly about, you know, the issue of the housing, right? Because that's very close to my heart. This affordable housing program was actually our brain wave. It was our brain child. In 2010, my administration did a policy paper And we went through the process and we got a cabinet approval to roll out affordable housing. Okay? And when we came up with this idea, at no point had we envisaged taxing people to access affordable houses.
Okay.
We, in our strategy paper of implementation, what we said was, we'll have a component of social housing. Because the late president, my fellow president, had asked me a question, saying, this is a brilliant idea, but what about the poor people who are currently living in those dwellings? What happens to them? And I said, because I knew the president didn't want anything free, I said, we have made an arrangement where those who are currently living will move into new houses, but continue paying rent at a similar amount until they finally own the houses in, say, a period of 25 years. So that was the strategy. But then the other houses were to be put on the market at an affordable price. Therefore, affordable housing. Now, the current, and it started off with His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, and I told his people that they will fail flat on their faces, and they did. And even this was going to fail flat on their faces. Because you remember, Uhuru Kenyatta's administration talked about 1 million houses, and when I questioned, it was dropped to 500, and then eventually there was no figure being talked about. Okay? Because, at that time, during Uhuru's time, the mortgage uptake was about 30,000, persons. So how do you move from 30,000 to 1 million or to 500,000? You don't have land, you don't have financing, you don't have, the economy cannot allow to absorb that kind of development. So we said, let us build these houses, but gradually. Let us build them in response to the market. Now, why did I call them affordable housing? Or why did my administration call them affordable housing? They were affordable because the land component in Kenya, at least in Kenya, takes about 50 to 60% of the cost of building. Then you have the financing cost, and then you have the actual cost of construction. Okay? So what I said, if we as a city at that time, now allies and county, if we as a city are contributing 60% for free so that our people can get decent housing, we are the biggest investor, we are the biggest stakeholder. But we are doing it on behalf of the people of Kenya, because even that land is held for the people in trust. It's not our land.
Right.
Then we said we'll call in investors to bridge the gap. So it was that gap that was going to be rolled into the market, and people would buy these houses.
Right.
Now, what we are being told right now, and that is where I've been seeking clarification, and maybe Mheshimiwa is here because I'm told they've been prosecuted that matter until they passed it.
True.
What we need to tell us is the so-called investors, if 60% of the cost has been contributed by the people of Kenya through the land, then people are being taxed to finance the same development.
Then
what is the point of having the so-called developers? The investors. What are they investing? They're investing nothing. I think this is something that needs to be reviewed. So in my view, because there are many gaps and we don't have time to talk about it. Most of us, at least I know he has a house. I'm sure if he doesn't have a house in Nairobi, he has a house somewhere.
I have.
And I have several houses because I'm several houses. I'm sure I has. They have several houses. Why would you now tax me? Because nobody, I can tell you, nobody assisted my family to buy where we currently dwell. So why should I contribute my money, hard-earned money, to assist somebody to buy a house and it's not my relative? Is that my responsibility?
Certainly.
So now, let us get back to the adjustment.
The best interest
1 second.
of time.
Let's get back to the fuel adjustment. A few years later, and a few years back, not a few months back, it's not even 12 months, we were saying that the cost of fuel is very high, and we are going to bring it down because we are going to remove the so many taxes that have been lumped on the fuel cost. And therefore, we'll be able to bring it to a certain figure. And we all know it, 100 bob. per litre. Fuel right now is retailing at, I don't know whether Mheshimiwa knows it. Maybe he doesn't know because, these are Mheshimiwas. Their cars are fueled and, these things. They're okay.
Nobody fuels our
Fuel is now retailing at 200 bob. Is that what you want to lead? In closing, this issue of...
I will allow you
CAS.
Because we are out of time.
CAS. You called us here. I've come from Nairobi County to Kiambu County. In the village, I'm in the village. Now, CSS, I have no problem in people being recruited. But recruited to do what? You see, the job must look for you. You don't look for the job. We have a situation where you're trying to create jobs for people. It's a sad state of affair. Because the question that we must be asking is, do we actually need that particular job? I want Mheshimiwa, before he leaves here today, because he's part of government, and this is our government, to explain to me like a child, what is the job description for that particular office? What is the job specification for that office? What authority has been given to that office so that they're able to roll out what they intended to do? What functions are they coming to cover? Where is the gap? Where is the gap in
Let us be fair.
The administration of this government, this government, that they need 50 other idlers? Because idlers. And some of them,
Mheshimiwa,
you know what? Okay, but let him tell us here. What is the job spec?
For him to, tell
Can he
us,
describe the job? Can he describe the job? Give him time to breathe. Can he describe the job? Can he give a specification? Can he tell us what authority the job will have?
Let's take that break and then come back to you. Gentlemen, we have a maximum of about 6 minutes to close, and so we come back to you to respond. And I know this is a conversation you've had to justify and all that, so here we are.
Thank you, Linda, for giving me the few minutes that are remaining. Mheshimiwa Kisia, I think he should be very realistic. At his level, he should be explaining to Kenyans the benefits of having affordable housing, having a decent housing. This is even a constitutional requirement that every Kenyan deserves a decent house. Why? he selectively ignores that requirement and takes it that somebody just out of the blues. He's even started by saying it didn't start with the Kenya Kwanza government. All what we are doing is actualizing. He has given a long explanation on how he started, how he thought it should go about it, but did he manage? No. For how long are we going to be talking about the same things, same over again and not actualizing? It is like the same issue of corruption. People who are saying you are not talking about corruption. Yes, but we don't talk about it, we act on it. So that is the difference. If you say that you are not going to tax people, you see, and yet you want services, how? Unless now you are going, probably you are going to get a donor from somewhere or go the same way where the previous government was going, just getting loans with no plan on how to repay up to the point where we are in now. People should be candid in this country, including a lie, that we are having in a deep hole because of the borrowing that we did, without actually knowing how we are going to repay, without having plans on generating enough income to repay those loans. It is in public domain that over half of what we get goes to repaying debt. So how else can we get out of this situation? I think that is where we are in. And as I said, this is a process. It has not been an event. It is a process from the previous governments. So about the housing, Linda, for how long are we going to live with Kibera around us? For how long are we going to live with the Kwangwaris? I think this is what, and he has been a boss of the county. But I'm surprised, and I think, I don't want to use the word ashamed, that he came in, saw Kibera, left it that way. Another government has come to get rid of that poor living conditions, and they're saying no. The allies are saying no, let it be as it is, because it is my money, and they don't have money. And we've all agreed is the previous governments that has made sure that those people are not getting out of that situation. This government wants to get people out of that situation. How can we do it? We need money. Where do we get this money? It has to be from ourselves, you see. There is no government that does not tax people, and that is the only way we can get money. The only issue would be, will those houses be built? I think that is the only issue. And if, for me, who has been through the sessions and actually interrogated whether they'll be built, they are going to be built because he has also mentioned the issue of investors. Actually, these are not coming, put it that they, even you can put an estate. All what the government is doing is to guarantee you that once that 200 units are over, you will get your money. And then the government now is like underwriting your costs. You will get your money plus your small profit, and then now they'll get in those people to pay the rent. Just the same model you are talking about. But this time not rent, but a mortgage to own that house. Surely, why can't we clap if the president can actualize what he started?
Let's make him happy.
No, not make him happy. You had a good idea, you never actualized it. Yeah. Now somebody is actualizing. What is wrong?
I hope you'll give me time to 1 minute.
No, we cannot.
What is wrong in
time on that?
About the CSs, surely. These are people who went through the process, through the Public Service Commission. You know, these are not appointees like the ambassadors or whatever. These went through the Public Service Commission. Remember, the CSAs have been there even during the Handshake Brothers, you see. And the court pronounced unconstitutional. They gave on what should be done. Public participation, I think, was the main issue. They underwent public participation to the extent where now these 50 CSAs were appointed. But we should also agree that if there is a president who also needs an applause, is the current president for obeying court orders. Because even after swearing them in and the court pronouncing that they should not assume office, they have not assumed the office. If we wanted to float it, it would have floated it. I can assure you, even now, that the courts pronounce themselves that they are constitutional. The president is going to obey. This one I can tell you, he's going to obey. I don't agree with the verdict. He might not agree with the verdict. In fact, he doesn't. That's why the AJ is appealing. But remember, we're people who also have faith in the court process. I am sure if it was the Azimio side, they would have gone to the streets because the court has ruled against them, you know. But for us, despite the fact that we're in the government, we are following it up from, we can start from the magistrate court to the high court to the Court of Appeal, if it's a constitutional issue, to the Supreme Court, and if the Supreme Court pronounces itself whichever way, that is the end of our legal process, we'll abide. Okay. That is what the president assured, that he will be abiding by. Even if he doesn't agree, he abides by the court process. Okay. I think this is the first time that we are having that will. Otherwise, for sure, if I'm to give the job description of the CSS, I think we can get it from the Public Service Commission when they were interviewing.
Now that you are here, tell us.
CRC, the salaries are set by the CRC. Those are those are commissions which are mandated.
Now that is here,
to set remuneration.
Mheshimiwa, now that
actually come with the job descriptions
now that
up to that extent. But in brief, even you as a governor, and you wanted to be a governor, you would have a deputy, isn't it? Basically, every office, including the presidency, has a deputy. The governors have a deputy.
Members of parliament will ask for deputies and others will ask for deputies.
No, it's not a question of asking for deputies. It's a question of the workload that has to be done.
How much does it
If you look at the CS, you see, the responsibilities. I think that is where they are coming to fit in.
Yeah.
And this will be very basic knowledge for anybody. The fact that maybe you are not considered could be sour grapes, maybe, if we reach at that point.
Maximum of
but I think this is where we are.
For fairness, 30 seconds.
I think the issue, like you have stressed, that the president need to see the ground. The housing now is a tax. Was a very unfortunate thing and is modern very wrong. You don't build people houses they cannot afford to live in. Because a house, despite being an asset, incur heavy, fees to sustain it and to maintain it. And we saw it with the very noble idea of Honorable Raila Odinga in Kibra when he's doing the slum upgrade projects. That when the people saw the opportunity that they were being built houses by the National Housing Corporation, and through the partnership with the UN Habitat, what they did is that they were being told to pay what they were paying in the mabati shanties, but they saw an opportunity to make a quick 3.5 million. So they sold houses, 3.5 million and 5 million shillings, saying a difference of maybe making a kill of 1 million shillings, not realizing that 1 million shillings without a plan, without a clear plan, is not, and is going to make them poorer.
Yeah.
And so they sold their houses to people who are richer, went back to the shanties, and now they are poorer. This is what is going to happen. So the housing tax, you don't build people houses. You enable them to build for themselves houses. You create new opportunities. You open up a northern frontier. You create opportunities. You build industries. You make people wealthier. They're not. And there's a lack of common sense about Kenya Kwanza.
Now, thank you, Linda. Now, I will not talk much about housing, but at least in my 36 months, I had a vision. I developed with my team. We developed a policy paper that had laid a foundation for affordable housing with a component of social housing. And he has been in that space. I don't know what his contribution has been. Let me get back to the CSS. The CSS, he has not told us what they're coming to do.
He can't.
These people are idlers. They are not covered in the Constitution. The Constitution is very clear. If you look at from, I think it's Article 30 to 152, it clearly states what the cabinet is. Nowhere from Article 130 to 152 does it mention of a CAS.
That's the only time we had.
Finally, Kenya is bleeding. Kenya is indeed bleeding. Let us stop the bleeding because it may be too late.
Well, Honorable Philip Kisia, governance and leadership expert, Mheshimiwa Kasim Sawa Tandaza, Member of Parliament of Matuga and Member of County Assembly of Kileleshwa, Honorable Robert Alai. We'll take a quick break and we'll be coming back with more, so don't you go anywhere. Thank you.
Asante sana.
Thank you.